everyone, to another exciting episode of We Heart Therapy. You're watching your guide to therapy and coaching, and I'm your host, Anabelle Bugatti. Today, we are talking about another type of couples therapy. It is the type of couples therapy pioneered by John and Julie Gottman called Gottman-style couples therapy. And with me today, we have a special guest. His name is John Edwards. He's an LCSW, a therapist in California, who's agreed to talk to us today about Gottman couples counseling. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Annabelle, for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So can you talk to our viewers a little bit about what Gottman-style couples counseling is?
Sure. The Gottman-style method of couples counseling was started by John and Julie Gottman, who are clinical psychologists up in the Seattle area. And this style of counseling is based on over 3,000 couples researched of 3,000 couples. That's a lot of couples. And basically what John and Julie did is they had what was called the Love Lab, which was basically an apartment with cameras in the apartment, everywhere except the bedroom and the bathroom. And they just observed couples. And then they divided those couples into the masters of relationships and the disasters of relationships. And from that information, they created the Gottman method for couples therapy. Basically, what that means is that there are very specific introduction trainings that you do. So there's a level 1, there's a level 2, there's a level 3, and then there's certification. And you get trained to do very specific kinds of interventions to really help couples increase their communication, increase their ability to talk about feelings, especially difficult feelings, and increase their ability to manage conflict. A lot of people think, oh, we shouldn't have conflict, but it's about managing conflict. And also just talking about those really difficult, sometimes ongoing problems that couples have in their relationship.
Very excellent. So I hear you say that Gottman-style couples counseling is well-researched, and they have their love lab up in Seattle area where they use this lab to study couples and help them go through communication patterns and help them resolve ongoing problems. Now, can you help our viewers understand maybe how some of the strategies that might be used in session might be different than other types of couples counseling?
Yes. So one of the things about the Gottman method that it is known for is what's called the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And these are 4 things that, if present in your relationship or marriage, actually predict divorce with over 90% accuracy. And so when we say predict divorce, it basically means that the couple will either break up, their marriage is doomed, or people become roommates. So may I have your half of the mortgage this month, please? May I have your half of the rent this month, please? But there's no longer a romantic relationship. And those 4 things are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And that is perhaps the hallmark or cornerstone of the Gottman method for couples therapy, because we really try to get couples to reduce those 4 horsemen when they're present in the relationship. Because if you start out a conversation with criticism, defensiveness, contempt, or stonewalling, within 90 seconds, the conversation is going to go south.
Yeah, so it sounds like when a couple comes into therapy and they're with the Gottman-style couples therapist, they're sort of going to look at the way in which the couple interacts and look for the presence of one or more of the 4 horsemen, and then try to interrupt that process and try to eliminate the presence of that, maybe using communication strategies, or I know they have the sound relationship house. Whatever different strategies they use, it sounds like one of the primary functions is to eliminate or greatly reduce one of the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse so that the relationship can have stability, safety, and endure over time happily, though not as roommates.
Yes, exactly. So the 4 horsemen do have antidotes. So the antidote for criticism is the gentle startup. The antidote for defensiveness is basically to take some responsibility for the issue and find a kernel of truth in what the other person is saying. So if the person says, hey, you're late, the response is, well, there was traffic, and you know what, you're right, I'm late. The antidote for contempt, and contempt is actually the most caustic of the four horsemen in a relationship. And the antidote for contempt is that you have to talk about your own needs, wants, and feelings. And that's a little bit tricky because people usually want to talk about what I want you to do, right? Versus what's going on with me. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling sad, versus saying what the other person is doing it. And, this is, we usually, contempt is also, there's a lot of facial expressions with contempt, like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that again, right? So conversation is going to go south. And then stonewalling, which is when you check out of the conversation that you're having, is the antidote for that is really to do some self-soothing. So you can rejoin the conversation and try to be part of the conversation. So those are the four things.
So I know a lot with couples, when stonewalling exists, it sort of looks like one person will shut down and they refuse to speak. They just sort of put up this wall and they're like, you're not getting past this. I'm not speaking to you about this. I refuse to talk about this. You can keep yelling at me. Maybe I'll go to the other room, whatever it is, but I'm going to shut down and not talk about this.
Yes, exactly. The person just checks out of the conversation. And John Gottman does a great thing where he goes, they're standing, the wife and the husband are arguing, and he's being the husband, and he's going, oh, the phone ring, thank God. But they're not really in the conversation. And so you really want to try to bring yourself down, calm yourself down to rejoin the conversation.
Yeah. And I like what you said about the antidote to criticism is a gentle startup, right? So can you give our viewers a little bit of an example of what a gentle startup might sound like? Sure.
So let's say you come home from work and the kitchen is filthy and there are dishes and everywhere. So a criticism would be, you didn't clean the kitchen, you're lazy, right? So criticism is when you're really talking about the person's character and you're saying there's something wrong with you, in essence, you're lazy. A gentle startup would be just simply stating what you observe. Wow, the kitchen is messy and this really frustrates me, right? So you're not accusing the other person of anything. You're not saying there is something wrong with you. You're just making an observation. And then you're talking about what's going on for you. The kitchen is, hey, I noticed the kitchen is dirty. This really upsets me when it's like this. That's one example of a gentle startup. Another example is just sometimes people have a hard time sort of coming up with a gentle startup. And a simple way is just to say, I'm not really sure how to say this. I'm a little upset and I'm going to try to do my best to communicate to you what it is that I would really like to say.
Those are both really great examples. So it sounds like instead of really going into character assassinations of your spouse or partner, you're really just talking about the situation and saying, hey, this is what I see. Like, I see the kitchen is still dirty, or, the dishes haven't been put away even though I asked, this really hurts me, or, I just feel really disrespected. It's really about you and how you feel about the situation, not how terrible your partner is and what's wrong with them because they didn't do these things.
Precisely.
Yeah. Those are some great suggestions and ways to remedy those situations, which, of course, as you mentioned, will be worked through very deeply through Gottman-style couples counseling. Now, is there a recommended length of therapy? I know most therapies, again, it always depends on the couple and really what they have going on and how deeply their disconnection is and how willing to change each person is. But, some models of counseling may describe that their typical course of treatment is brief. Others may describe it as long-term. What is the trajectory for Gottman in general?
So in general, typically it's about 12 to 16 sessions.
It's not bad.
But, as you said, it's also really individual. So if you have a couple where there's been an affair, for example, it is going to be more than 12 or 16 sessions because when there's an affair, there's a lot of trauma involved.
Yeah.
That's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah. So roughly 12 to 16, but again, it really depends on the couple, if they have really deep levels of trauma or other, highly disconnected situations in their marriage. And again, how willing they are to change will, of course, affect whether they need more or less, right?
Yes. And one of the big things, too, is that the average couple waits about 6 years when they're having problems before they go get help.
And that's a long time for those problems to really set in.
Yeah, so they're entrenched.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that perhaps couples really need to realize, that if you've waited 6 years, which is what the average couple waits, then it's probably not gonna get fixed in 3 or 4 sessions. Plus, the initial part of the Gottman method is a 3-session assessment. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not always possible to capture everything you need to know about a couple in 45 minutes to an hour, especially when you have 2 people in the room who are full of their own perspectives and their own histories contributing to the relationship.
Yes, and so for one of the challenges is that if folks are using insurance, then of course they're restricted to that 45-minute, 60-minute hour. If they're paying privately, the Gottman method is really designed around an 80 to 90-minute session. So that's sort of the recommended, but it's not a hard and fast rule.
Right, of course.
Recommendation, yeah.
So if somebody would like to find a Gottman's couple therapist in their area, how can they go about finding one?
So they can go to the Gottman Referral Network, and actually if you just type in Gottman Referral Network into Google, it'll pop up and you're able to search by state and city, and then each therapist lists their website, lists sort of what they do. And the only thing is, not all Gottman trained therapists are on the Gottman Referral Network, because you have to have had level 2 training or higher. And then it tells you whether this person has level 2 training, level 3 training, or if they're certified. And there's a very tiny number. We're a very unique population when it comes to certified Gottman method couples therapists. There are only about 270 of us in the world.
Wow.
So it's a unique designation to have.
So are there Gottman couples therapists outside of the United States?
Yes, there are. There's actually, if I'm remembering correctly, there's a Gottman, there's a group in Australia, and I think there are a couple of people that are certified in Australia. There's a certified person, I do believe, in Germany, and I think someone just got certified in the Netherlands. And there's some certified Gottman therapists in Canada, in British Columbia. So the certification numbers are small, but they're also, the Gottman Institute says it's trained about 20,000 people in the Gottman method, and that's counting levels 1,
Great.
2, and 3.
Great. But basically it means that there are Gottman-style couples therapists available around the world, not just the United States.
Yes, they are.
Excellent. Now you're located in Oakland, California. So if there's a couple who lives in the Northern California area, in that nearby area, how can they find you if they'd like to work with you?
They can just type my name into Google, John R. Edwards, LCSW, and it'll pop right up. Or they can go to my website, which is westcoastpsychotherapy.com.
westcoastpsychotherapy.com. We're going to put that link in the description for this video. Thank you again so much, John, for being with us today and talking to us about Gottman's couples counseling. Thank you again to our viewers for watching and staying tuned. Make sure you check us out on the web, www.wehearttherapy.com. You can find all the information about our special guest today in the drop-down description for this video, as well as additional links. If you like what you see here today, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay tuned because more episodes are on the way.